cr101radio.com, podcasts, and more.
27. The Blessed Meek. March the 2nd, 1954. Good morning, friends. In going through the Beatitudes, we have seen these past 2 weeks that they who are poor in spirit, that is, who feel their spiritual need, have the promise of the kingdom of heaven. Blessed mourning is to see ourselves as God sees us, as sinners, as self-willed, self-centered people, and grieving over that fact, to have the assurance of His grace and comfort. The third Beatitude is our concern this morning. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Matthew 5:5. This is probably the best known and the most unpopular of the Beatitudes. To most people, there is something repulsive and cowardly about meekness. It suggests the crawling, cringing slyness of a Uriah Heep. Men like Nietzsche have despised Christianity for daring to exalt such a trait as meekness into a virtue. Such men, however, have only revealed their own nature in their condemnation. They have not silenced the ringing promise of those words, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Well then, who are the meek? Who are these people who shall inherit the earth in part in this life and in its fullness in the new creation? Let's get their meaning firmly fixed in our minds. The meek are the tamed. That literally is the meaning of meek. Meekness does not mean a lack of spirit, but rather a wild nature that has been disciplined and tamed. The blessed meek are those whose nature is by the inheritance in Adam wild and rebellious. Seeing their poverty of spirit and mourning over their waywardness, they submit to the discipline of the Lord and are tamed by Him. We can understand something of the meaning of meekness by looking at wild horses. The northern Nevada, southern Idaho country from which I moved to Santa Cruz last year is wild horse country. My brother-in-law, a sheepman in Colorado, lives in wild horse territory also. Over his fireplace, he has a magnificent photograph of a trapped wild stallion, fierce, unruly, and hopelessly wild, and therefore useless. Few people realize that the average wild horse is a stunted animal. It's part of the penalty of his wildness. The average tame horse can far outperform the wild horse and is therefore useful. But the wild horse is hunted for chicken feed or for canning for overseas consumption. In the same way, you and I are useless to the Lord as long as we are by nature wild and untamed. The more we persist in our wildness, the more stunted we become, and the more useless. The only way we can become useful is to be broken to harness or to saddle. The breaking process is a hard and painful one. The price of meekness is a life of being broken from our ways to fit the ways of the Lord. The more we resist the breaking process, the harder we are ridden until we accept the superior direction and respond to the reins. Meekness is thus being tamed by the Lord and patiently enduring His will and responding to His word. The meek man has learned to say, "Not my will, but yours be done." He has learned to deny himself and to bow down before the sovereign will of God. In dealing with other men, the tamed man again reveals his meekness. Instead of responding to evil with evil, he obeys the apostolic commandment, "Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good." Romans 12:21. He is patient, merciful, and forgiving in his dealings with all men. He controls his tongue, an important sign of meekness because one of the hardest things to tame is our speech. The meek life is a harness life, and the harness life is the life of power. Thus it is that men whose lives are tamed and harnessed do flourish and prosper. To a very great extent, they do inherit the kingdom here and now. But the fullness of their inheritance awaits them in the new creation at His coming again. Meekness has its inheritance, and it is of the Lord. All of us need more meekness in our lives. We resist the breaking process and prefer our wildness. but in our hearts we know that our only peace is in submission to his will. If we are tamed by him, we are heirs in him. This is his sure and certain promise to us, for he said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." Matthew 5:3-5.